The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Tayyip Erdoğan, President of the Republic of Turkey. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome the United Nations, His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, President of the Republic of Turkey, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, distinguished heads of state and government, distinguished delegates, I greet you all with respect and wish that the 69th session of the UN General Assembly will provide favorable results for all countries, peoples, and humanity. I would like to congratulate Mr. Sam Kutesa for his appointment as the President and thank Mr. John William Ash for his work. Distinguished delegates, the 69th session of the UN General Assembly is being held on the 100th anniversary of the First World War in 1914. And we sadly see that the geography of the First World War is still deprived of stability, peace, and prosperity even after a century. A wide geography ranging from Iraq to Syria, from Palestine to Yemen, from Libya to Afghanistan and to Ukraine, witness scenes that leave deep scars on the conscience of humanity. People still die from hunger and communicable diseases in the 21st century. Children and women are brutally murdered in wars. The poor countries struggle with hunger, malnutrition, communicable diseases, and lack of education, while the rich countries of the world enjoy prosperity. Climate change remains as an important test, threatening the future of our world and our children. This situation certainly does not befit human dignity, because we have problems that directly concern all of humanity and therefore, of course, the United Nations. Let me stress the following once again at the 69th session of the UN General Assembly: that no one is innocent in a world in which children die and are killed. No one is safe, and no one can enjoy sustainable peace and prosperity. $6,300,000 children under 5 years old lost their lives in the world only in the last year. In the war in Syria, 17,000 children lost their lives. 375,000 of them were injured, and 19,000 lost at least one organ. This year, 490 children were killed and 3,000 injured as a direct target of the most modern and murderous weapons in the Gaza Strip of Palestine. Children playing on the beaches, running around in parks, taking refuge in mosques and schools, curling up in their mother's bosom for safety were mercilessly killed in front of cameras and before the eyes of the world. We also see that those who are trying to draw the world's attention to the death of children, women, and even the disabled in Palestine are being labeled in different ways by others. Again, those objecting to the murders in Iraq and Syria and the murder of democracy in Egypt are subjected to certain unfair and groundless accusations and are almost immediately accused of supporting terrorism. The global conscience is aware that those ruthlessly criticizing some countries for lack of freedom of press ignore the 16 journalists who were killed in Palestine and the pressure on the media members. I will speak very clearly. Those standing by, remaining unresponsive to the killing of children, vicious murders of women, and overthrowing of governments that come to power with the votes of the public through the use of weapons and tanks, are openly participating in these crimes against humanity. More importantly, this double standard by the modern world leads to significant and serious distrust in a wide range of people. And this feeling of distrust towards the United Nations, where we are, and international organizations, harms the sense of justice and leads millions of people to despair. This feeling of distrust is one of the main sources of power for the growth of international terrorism that we face today. The double standard vis-à-vis the oppressed and the indifference to the killings of children act as a lifeline for terrorism all around the world. Those who forsake hope from the UN and other international organizations are desperately and helplessly falling into the traps of terrorists. The problems in Iraq have caused major destruction for the Iraqi people. And more recently, this problem has spread beyond the borders of Iraq. And unfortunately, Iraq has become a free region for terrorist organizations. And the current crisis in Iraq has a direct effect on countries in the region and particularly on Turkey. With the newly established government in Iraq, we hope that Iraq will make a fresh start. Turkey will keep standing by the people of Iraq for their stability and peace. And similarly, the Syrian crisis is now spilling over the borders of that country. And the problem ongoing for a half-century in Palestine is already a root cause for many of the problems in the region. Implementing a two-state solution in Palestine, lifting the blockade over Gaza, and establishing an independent and viable state of Palestine along with Israel is a political, humane, and moral necessity. From this rostrum, many speak about a two-state solution, but speaking about this solution is not sufficient. We need to act. It is time to act. It is no longer time to speak to this issue. We have to move beyond that because thousands of people are dying and we are only speaking about this issue and not acting on it. And I think this is a sad indication of how far our sense of responsibility can only take us. at this point at the UN. So we have to move, we have to address these problems as the United Nations without any further delay, so that more innocent people do not die, and we can achieve a solution. Let me also say that the world is bigger than five. The fact that the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council have rendered the UN ineffective, despite the situation in the world, cannot be acceptable to global conscience. Because decisions taken here at the UN may be dependent on a single country. If one country does not agree, then decisions are not taken, and they are not therefore implemented. The United Nations has failed to find a solution, as more than 2,000 innocent people were killed within just 2 months in Palestine. In Syria, the UN has failed to find effective solutions, as more than 200,000 people were killed and more than 9 million people were displaced in the last 4 years. And I also find it strange that we focus on issues selectively. 2,000 people are killed by chemical weapons, and we focus on chemical weapons. But on the other hand, 200,000 people are killed by conventional weapons. And we consider killing of 2,000 people by chemical weapons a crime. But what about the killing of 200,000 people by conventional weapons? Is this not a crime? I cannot understand this kind of an approach, this kind of a mentality. We must first sort our understanding out. We have to remember that the use of all kinds of weapons leading to the death of people should be a crime, be it chemical or conventional arms. The elected president in Egypt was overthrown by a coup in Egypt, and thousands of people wanted to defend their choice, and they were killed. But the United Nations and democratic countries have done nothing but watch these events, and the person conducting the coup is legitimized. If we are talking about democracy, then we should respect the choice of the people in the ballot box. If, on the other hand, we're going to defend people who come to power through coups, then I ask the question why we exist as the United Nations. The United Nations is also unable to display an effective stance in the face of uncontrolled events, terrorism and migration in Iraq. And this silence, desperation and unresponsiveness can no longer continue. We need more efficient and swift decision-making mechanisms in order to address global and regional problems. And moreover, the United Nations should act more bravely to remain on the correct side of issues. Distinguished guests, let me point out to another issue. We do not approve any kind of terrorism that is supposedly carried out in the name of religion. We believe that such actions are a huge disrespect to all religions. And we strongly condemn coupling Islam, which means peace, with terrorism. It is indeed very offending that Islam and terror are used together. Similarly, those labeling their inhuman actions as Islamic disrespect the religion of Islam as well as all other religions and humanity. Distinguished delegates, Turkey has been trying very hard to build peace and prosperity in the region. We do not interfere in the internal affairs of any country. We respect the territorial integrity of every country in the region, and we strongly support their territorial integrity. On the issue of the Israeli-Palestinian issue, we have been working for a two-state solution based on peace and mutual respect, and our sensitivity to this Palestinian issue stems from the principle that everybody's right to life is sacred. We've been approaching the issues in our region solely on humanitarian and moral grounds, and not for reasons of race, religion, sect, or interests. We've been sheltering 1.5 million people who had to leave Syria in our country, and mostly by our own means. 1.5 million people are in my country. We are providing them with food, medication, education. We are doing all this as the host country. What about support from the rest of the world? Unfortunately, there is not much support. So far, we have spent more than $3.5 billion for the Syrian refugees in our country. And there are about 4 million Syrian refugees in the world at the moment. 1.5 million are in Turkey, and the rest are in Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, Egypt, and other countries. On the other hand, I ask you, what about the rich and strong European countries? They provide refuge to only 130,000 Syrian refugees so far. So 130,000 refugees in Europe, and only in Turkey we have 1.5 million, and then plus the 2.5 million refugees in the other countries I listed. The crisis in Syria has become a regional and a global issue, and so much so that it's impossible to remain indifferent to this issue for political and humanitarian reasons. We have also provided treatment to 102 injured civilians from Gaza in our hospitals. Turkey also embraced 30,000 Yazidis who were fleeing Iraq. And just before coming here to New York, Turkey opened its borders to Kurds escaping from Syria, and it was Turkey who provided them with humanitarian aid. And only in the last 5 days, the number of Syrian refugees who have entered our country has exceeded 150,000. We opened our doors to Jews who were expelled from Europe 500 years ago. We always protected the rights of Christians in Europe. And today, we open our arms to those in need, irrespective of their religion, race, or sect. And I'm proud to say that Turkey allocates 21,000 of its national income to humanitarian aid, and as such has become one of the most generous countries in the world. And in addition, thanks to the experience that we have gained throughout history, we have always kept our objectivity regarding terrorism, sectarian conflicts, and other types of crises, and we have always based our approach on defending and protecting rights. And let me say specifically that Turkey is not a country which supports or allows terrorism, because we are a country which has been fighting terrorism. Because Turkey has suffered from terrorism for 30 years, and we still suffer from it. And Turkey is also a country which is strongly against all types of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and racism. I have personally expressed that anti-Semitism is a crime against humanity, and I may be one of the exceptional few political leaders who has so clearly stated this in the world. And in the same way, the whole world should accept that Islamophobia too is a crime against humanity. As Turkey, we would like to see a solution to the problem in Cyprus. As Turkey, we would like to see an end to the occupation of territories in Azerbaijan. As Turkey, we have always called strongly for the territorial integrity of Ukraine. We stand ready to support regional and global peace at all costs, and we will continue to be a unique friend for our friends. We will always stand firmly against terrorism, oppressors, murderers, and especially children's murderers, and we will fight for democracy and prosperity with heart and soul. We are always ready to join forces with other countries within the framework of these ideals and on this common path. And this indeed is the kind of cooperation that mankind is in search of at this moment. In this context, let me also state that we look to your support for Turkey's candidacy for a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council and express our gratitude to the countries supporting us. Towards this end, I wish that the 69th session of the UN General Assembly will start the process for wiping out tears, blood, poverty, and injustice from the face of the earth. And I wish every success to the General Assembly and to Mr. Kutesa, its president, and carry the most sincere greetings of my country to all UN countries. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Republic of Turkey for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the President.